Thank you very much. Very good morning to all the friends who have joined for the Harvard India conference. In fact, I'm amazed you've kept it on a Sunday morning. It's not the best of times to invite students who are already stressed with a very hectic week of study to be and a party on Saturday night to be listening in onto a subject which, of course, for many Indians would be of great interest, the India at 2030, but also quite a challenge to have this program on a Sunday. But thank you very much. I'm delighted to be able to join the Harvard students, both, I'm told, from the Harvard Kennedy School and from the business school. And I hope all of you are doing well and are safe and healthy. From witnessing events like George Washington and his troops stay at Massachusetts Hall in 1720 to giving the world more than 150 Nobel laureates, and I'm told over 20 heads of state, Harvard has not only seen, but has created history. Life has come a full circle for me. I attended the Owners President Management Program, the OPM, in Harvard sometime in 2013, May 2013, and was looking forward to completing the program. But turn of events and got into government in May 14 and haven't been able to come back to Harvard, except I think for my son's graduation. But I've had a chance to address your students a couple of times before, and always enjoyable to experience the participation of the Harvard students. You must have all in your studies been taking a lot of interest about what's happening in COVID, but clearly I can see that things are changing. I don't know about the Harvard classes, but by and large, economic activity, education, everything has gone back to normal back home in India. And I do believe and hope that the typical 2-year cycle of a pandemic is coming to an end and we'll see the world getting back to normalcy. India clearly is a country which converted the crisis of COVID into an opportunity. We experienced great difficulties during COVID, particularly the initial days when we went in for a very strict lockdown, followed by a very severe wave, the first wave, which while the numbers were not as high as the current, the last wave, clearly saw a lot more distress. But all through this 2-year period, India continued to convert this whole problem into newer ways of thinking, newer ways of doing business. And therefore, I can say with confidence that we see India in this decade, in the next 8 years, really moving forward at high speed, improving the quality of life for our people, bringing prosperity to a large number of people, and seeing the economy in India contribute both to the well-being of the Indian people as well as contributing to the world. Of course, we have contributed to Harvard also in significant measure, right from your earlier dean, Dr. Nitin Noria, and your current dean, Dr. Shrikant Datar at the Harvard Business School, both educated in my home city of Mumbai and both illustrious faculty of Harvard, who I'm sure have trained hundreds and thousands of Indian boys and girls to become good management participants and contributed significantly to the success stories of many Indian business groups and families, many entrepreneurs, many startups. I think if one was to look at the way we plan the next decade or so, I think the central theme is Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat translates to a self-reliant India, but very often badly misunderstood by many people to be inward-looking, to be closing the doors of India, or to be anti-imports in some sense. I think it's important that I articulate what we mean by Atmanirbhar Bharat. When we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are really looking at a self-confident India, an India that engages with the rest of the world from a position of strength, an India where we are not at all looking at only what we export, or we are looking at unleashing the true potential of India to the world, in the world markets, wherever we have the competitive strengths, or wherever on a comparative basis it makes sense to work with India, but at the same time looking to engage with the rest of the world for areas of their strength, bringing goods and services into India from other parts of the world where we believe they are more competitive, they have better technologies, they can help our economy to grow, help our entire economic ecosystem to prosper. So we really are looking at a kind of a blueprint to prepare India for the next 25 years. India, as you are all aware, is completing 75 years of independence. The next 25 years, as we go to an India at 100, are going to be the defining years for India. We have, over the last 75 years, built quite a base on which we believe it's time for India to really take off. And that's the Amrit Kal. The next 25 years until 2047, we believe, is an opportunity for all of us to contribute significantly to a much, much more prosperous India, caring India, a much more equitable India where every citizen gets the right opportunity to show his talent, to participate in economic growth, and really be a much better citizen, both for India and for the rest of the world. The Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has very rightly said, and I quote, "India is a bouquet of hope for the world." And I say that because what he meant was India's technology, India's talent, and our temperament bring hope to the world. Powered by the triple engine of exports, investment, and startups, the foundation has been set to become a global powerhouse. In fact, at the G20 summit in Rome, about a couple of months ago, the Honorable Prime Minister had shared with world leaders how through the COVID period, India met every single one of our international commitments, particularly in the services sector. We are all aware that a number of supply chains or number of technology chains all over the world have India at the back end, or India also as an important element of the service chains that banks have, financial institutions, insurance companies, many software developers, many internet-based companies, many technology solution providers. They all have India in their entire chain. Through the COVID period, we in India met every single commitment. Not for a second did India let down any of our trading partners through the world. And I think that's something which has earned us the credibility of a trusted partner. The world today looks upon India as somebody who can be trusted in the most difficult times to fulfill their commitments. And there can be nothing more defining for India's future than the fact that this is a country which has transparency, which has talent, and which can be trusted. Today, in the digital world, for example, India is showing the world how to bring mass transformation using digital platforms, whether it's the UPI system on payment services, whether it's COVID app, which we used for our vaccination program in India, which, if I may venture to suggest, should make every Indian proud because it was far superior to anything seen anywhere else in the world, actually mapping every individual for the days on which he got vaccinated, sending him alerts to tell him or her that the next dose is due, and monitoring and recording every single individual who's got vaccinated, so that all those who are not vaccinated or didn't come in for the second dose can actually be followed up with and encouraged to complete the whole program. So it's been a great journey that has earned us the sobriquet of a trusted partner for the world. And in the government of India, we were committed to achieve this right from day one. The day the lockdown was announced, within minutes and hours, our teams got down to seeing what needs to be done. How do we take all the facilities into people's homes, bring broadband connectivity, move equipment, but do not let down anybody in the world, not allow any technology-based system to suffer because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, truly, that is what defines India. As we work, as we are committed to bring ease of doing business in India, we are equally committed to ease of living for our people. We believe in the maxim of maximum governance and minimum government. We believe government has to get out of business. Government has to get out of the lives of the common man and let entrepreneurship flourish. Let businesses run business, not government. And we are working relentlessly with that long-term vision. In fact, most recently, we launched the Pradhan Mantri, the PM Gati Shakti National Infrastructure Master Plan, something which is also a first of its kind. We've used geospatial mapping to bring all the available infrastructure and all the available geographical features of India on several maps, which in a way talk to each other through APIs, which we believe will help us plan India's needs and implementation of infrastructure in the future in a much more scientific and efficient manner. Similarly, we are right now engaged in preparing an open network for digital commerce, a new network which will enable different platforms to provide e-commerce services to the people of India, and will also in a way democratize or socialize e-commerce for small startups, for new entrepreneurs, for regional e-commerce platforms, for local e-commerce platforms, so that the mom and pop stores also can benefit from technology, from e-commerce. And we hope that we are able to save millions of livelihoods in these mom and pop stores and not allow what happened in Europe or America to happen in India. In a way, the policies of the last 7 years, I believe, have created the foundation for the next 25 years when India at 100 in 2047 is being celebrated. We've addressed a number of concerns that the world had, that Indian businesses had, concerns around irregular banking, concerns around the strength of our banking systems. We are moving towards a corruption-free India, something that is a dream of every Harvard student, I'm very sure. We have developed the foundation for an economy which we hope will continue to be the world's fastest growing large economy for years over the next 2 or 3 decades. Our exports today at $400 billion on goods and about $240 billion on services are the highest ever in the history of India. We've never seen this kind of export ever in the history of India. And we hope to continue to grow and participate in a much bigger way in world markets, for which our focus is on quality, scale, and productivity. We believe that that is what was lacking in India. The real focus and thrust on quality, global manufacturing scale, and of course, better productivity levels. Our startup ecosystem is doing us proud with over 80 unicorns currently and over 60,000 startups which are registered. There may be many more which don't even come into the formal ecosystem. Foreign direct investment has been breaking records for the last 6 years in a row. And let's hope the current year will also be a record foreign direct investment coming into India. We've now prepared a national single window for all approvals. It's, of course, a beta version that's been launched. It's undergoing extensive testing by the stakeholders, by business, whom we are encouraging to use it and tell us how it could be better. But in the next few months, I hope that India will have truly an empowered national single window, which will make it very easy and seamless to get all formal approvals required at the government, at the central or state level, and make it easier to start and run or even close down a business. The conversation around free trade agreements was also initiated in the opening remarks. Today, we are not looking at free trade agreements only from the diplomatic point of view or to be a part of a larger grouping necessarily. We are engaged in free trade agreement conversations from a position of reciprocity. It will be an equitable, fair and balanced agreement that India will look to achieve. And I can tell you that our recent success with the United Arab Emirates, with whom we finalized a comprehensive economic partnership in 88 days, start to finish. We launched in September, ended in December. And in 88 days, a complete, comprehensive, very holistic agreement has been finalized. Of course, we are focusing on FTAs with largely the developed world or with like-minded countries who value democracy, value transparency, and respect the mutual sensitivities and concerns on both sides. Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe the time has now come for all of you also to participate in India's growth story. And it can be a participation from wherever you are. It could be your ideas, you could be pools of ideation or new ways of working, or give us suggestions on what's happening around the world and how India can benefit from a fresh thinking on a variety of subjects. our Kennedy School boys and girls can help us plug in the gaps in our governance systems or highlight how we could do better governance in India. Our business school students could certainly contribute to making our business ecosystem more investor-friendly, more entrepreneur-friendly. And I do hope as you embark on your life after school, whether in India or anywhere else, in whatever sphere of activity you are, whether you're in a job, whether you are a professor, whether you are a startup, you're an entrepreneur, you get into your family business, I do hope there'll be a little bit of India in everything you do. And I do hope you'll be able to contribute to a better future for every Indian. And towards that, may I call upon the Harvard India diaspora to 3 call of actions, kind of 3 ideas on which I would appeal to you to reflect and see how you can contribute. 1, as I said earlier, keep India, even if it's a small part, but keep India with you wherever you go, whatever you do. And within that, I think a little social objective, seva bhav, as they say in Hindi, could become something which should be there in your heart and your mind so that you can give back to your nation as you progress, as you succeed, as you do better in life. If you can, take out some time to mentor young aspiring minds in India, particularly in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. It could even be students in municipal schools or students in your villages back home, if you're able to connect with them, or we could help you connect with them. But inspire them, give them, motivate them, give them something to learn and something to aspire for. So mentoring young aspiring India could also be a wonderful way to give back to India. And thirdly, provide innovative solutions to solve the problems of different sections in India. It could be something for the farmers, could be something for our artisans, could be something for our weavers, it could be something for our small retailers or the MSME sector. It could be something to help encourage entrepreneurship or our people, the less privileged sections of society, to give them a better future. Help realize the goals that we have set out in India, both to make India Atmanirbhar, but also to make India prosperous. As Mark Zuckerberg said, and I quote, "I am here to make something long-term. Anything else is temporary." Friends, India is ready to take giant leaps towards transforming the nation and changing the lives of 135 crore Indians, 1.35 billion aspirational Indians looking for a better future. I invite all of you to be a part of this journey of 1/6 of the world's population. As they say, when India grows, the world grows. When India does better, the world will do better. As India reforms, the world transforms. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, my young friends. I wish you all well. I wish you all great success in whatever is your calling in life, whatever you choose to do. I'm sure each one of you will be a great success and will make every Indian proud of your achievements. Thank you.
Sir, heartfelt thanks for inspiring us, really. The three areas of calls to action are some things we'll keep with us, keeping India in our hearts, being mentors, and providing innovative solutions. And you are inspiring us to be part of our country's growth story to the best of our abilities. So thank you for that. So you've covered so much wonderful ground during your opening remarks. Atmanirbhar Bharat, Amrit Kal, transparency, talent, and trust. Sir, I'd love to ask you a few questions, starting with Atmanirbhar Bharat. Excuse me. You've outlined a range of initiatives, both aimed at helping domestic businesses, and as you said, government getting out of the way of businesses and entrepreneurs, and looking at export markets and global markets. Yet, in some circles, there's this impression that this government is getting back towards protectionism and import substitution and all that, citing things like higher import duties for certain products. So what's your response to those concerns?
Good question, my friend. I think the figures speak for themselves. As I said, we will cross $400 billion of merchandise exports this year. But by the way, our imports also at an all-time high. And we welcome it because I think you get technology, you get capital equipment, you get intermediate products which help us to manufacture or serve both Indian needs and international needs. So per se, we are not against imports. In fact, when the imports go up, it encourages the private sector to invest. It actually sets in motion the investment cycle, because that means there is a demand for goods and services. But the import duty point you raised is actually more for products which are largely of a nature which are low quality or mostly consumer goods, which are being imported from one geography. And where we are finding that goods are being dumped into India, very low quality, under-invoiced often, or very low-priced goods against which nobody can compete. So really our target is not high-tech or good products or quality products. And if one was to assess the products where duties have gone up, you'll find they'll mostly be products which are of a nature where India has competitive strengths. We could actually produce very well in India if there was a level playing field. So if you saw in my remarks, I think I did mention that we are looking at engaging more with countries with values of democracy, transparent business systems, open economies where data is available for all. I remember when RCEP negotiations were going on in Bangkok, and I actually came in only towards the end. I became Commerce Minister in June 19, and the final decision was to be taken on 4th of November. So I had only 5 months to really understand what's happening and take a call, or let's say, advise the Honorable Prime Minister and the government what needs to be done. But I realized that it was an agreement amongst unequals. And when we would talk about data sharing, we would hit a stone wall. I'll give you a small example. There are products that come into India where the import price is even lower than the raw material cost. And I'm sure the same would be for America or Europe. They're getting a lot of goods from certain countries that the raw material costs in America or Europe would be more than the finished product. Now, for so many years, maybe Europeans and Americans felt it was great that they were getting cheap goods for their economy. Now even they are realizing the effect and impact of this on their people, on jobs in their country, on their overdependence on such supply chains which are unreliable. So to my mind, I think India has learned its lessons and we are trying to balance it out. And therefore, the free trade agreements play a very important role going forward in our journey to integrate with the world and with honest supply chains. Therefore, we are in dialogue with Australia, Canada, EU, UK, Israel. Very soon we'll launch GCC countries. The US, of course, has taken a decision not to do any other new free trade agreement. Now, that's a call that the US has taken. It's not about whether they want to do a deal with India or no. They've taken a call at the macro level. However, my counterpart and I are in dialogue to see how at least we can look at other ways beyond an FTA, better market access, more engagement on investments, maybe identified products where we could support each other. So we are working together on many things.
Great, sir. Thank you for that. And I do want to ask you a bit more about FTAs, about India-US relations. But before that, I did want to ask about, you mentioned a number of initiatives to help Indian companies increase their global footprint. So there's the focus on domestic markets. There's also, as you put it, taking India to the world where we have competitive advantages and welcoming the world to India in areas of mutual benefit. You put it really well. So could you mentioned PM Gati Shakti, for instance, you mentioned PLI scheme. Could you tell us a bit more about these initiatives that are aimed at really making India a manufacturing powerhouse in the world?
You know, PM Gati Shakti is something which even about 45 minutes back, I was explaining to somebody whom I was meeting. It's truly a transformational initiative. In fact, the Prime Minister has been trying to get this done for many years. And the whole system could not really understand the strength of PM Gati Shakti until, we really had to drill it down to every level. It's a very, very simple and elementary thought process, but an extremely complex technology which we have developed, which is a part of the PM Gati Shakti. The best way to explain PM Gati Shakti is probably through an example. PM Gati Shakti is basically maps, or let's say layers of information, which are geospatial maps or geospatial data being put down on a map, and a series of maps or series of layers, which is a part of one platform or a part of one network, and they talk to each other through APIs. So, to give you an example, there would be a map of all the forest lands in the country. That's one layer. There's a map of all the rivers of the country, another layer. A map of all the wildlife sanctuaries in the country, a third layer. Like that, we've already developed about 360 plus layers of different data. For example, right now there's a mapping going on of all the testing facilities all over the country and what tests are available in which part of the country. The idea behind this is that suppose I was to make a plan for a railway line. How do we do it now? We prepare the alignment of the railway line, the route, in our office on spreadsheets or on maps. Then a physical survey is carried out to see whether that's the most ideal route, whether there are no impediments on the route or what happens, whether it's the most efficient way to implement it. That survey at times on a long route could take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And despite our best efforts, since it's physical, very often we still goof up. Now, if I was to run this alignment through these various geospatial layers, right, put the alignment into this PM Gati Shakti module, what would happen is the alignment we are thinking, should it be passing through a wildlife sanctuary? I would be able to see it on that PM Gati Shakti because that alignment will run through all the wildlife sanctuaries. And anything coming on the way will kind of guide me that may be a good idea to skirt it, to reroute it a little bit so that I'm not stuck in a wildlife sanctuary on the way. And getting a wildlife sanctuary permission to have a railway train passing through it is a nightmare. And we have several projects all over the country, roads, highways, railways, where projects are stuck because of a wildlife or a forest or a large river, which was not anticipated to cost as much. coming on the way. Now, river has certain areas which it's very wide, certain areas where it's very narrow. A little realignment can actually save you millions of dollars if we realign the route a little bit and go to the narrow end of the river where we could have a small bridge rather than a long, expensive bridge. So all projects can be first planned better, faster, and then monitored more efficiently using the PM Gati Shakti. As I said, I'm doing testing facilities. Why am I mapping out all the testing facilities? If the garment is made in Bangalore and my testing of that garment is in Surat or in Delhi, imagine the inconsistencies. Or if the grapes are grown in Nasik and the grapes testing by food FSSAI is not in this region, Mumbai, Nasik region, but is, let's say, in Telangana. I know now that I need to set up facilities near Nasik, which is the main grape center, or in Nagpur for oranges. So the idea is map what is available and then use it to plan for the future investments. And this could be useful for industries. You know, there are these plant location services that many large consultancies and the big four give. I know that IBM and all do this service. That if you want to set up let's say, a semiconductor complex in India, which we are promoting through our PLI schemes, right? Where do you want to locate it? You will spend millions of dollars with a consultant finalizing where you should locate it in India or anywhere else in the world. Using PM Gati Shakti, at least in India, you can actually look at what you require. You may require uninterrupted and high quality power. That would be available on one of the layers in the PM Gati Shakti. The availability of powers, the downtime, the adequate backups, surplus power, where the shortages are. You need water. You need large piece of land, maybe 300-400 acres. You need skilled manpower, so good educational ecosystem. So all your requirements, when you feed into Gati Shakti, you'll be able to identify which are the 3, 4, 5 locations which are most ideal. And then you can visit those 4, 5 places, negotiate with the local government, the state or the local bodies, see who gives you the best deal and plan your project, cut down months, sometimes years in planning your location. And of course, the production-linked incentives is a very, very simple logic that we are using to support and encourage certain focus sectors. We had 14 earlier, and then we brought semiconductors, so now 15 sectors, where we are going to give about $40 billion of support to help create global champions, help create scale, large scale, which I mentioned earlier. Quality, scale, and productivity is going to define India's manufacturing. And then the MSMEs will get an ecosystem. They'll be able to create the ecosystem around these large manufacturing powerful bodies. So if a large semiconductor complex comes up somewhere, there could be a whole ecosystem of hundreds of MSMEs around it, which will be job generating and create business opportunities or startup opportunities. So under PLI, we are looking at kind of creating global champions in certain focus areas. And we determine these sectors through a partnership with the private sector, our industry chambers and the government working together. We had set up a scale committee, a steering committee for advancement of localization and employment, which was headed by a private sector guy, the CEO of Mahindra's, Mr. Pawan Goyal, which had all the major industry chambers. And government was only a facilitator to identify these sectors and see the cost disability. What is not allowing that industry to flourish in India? So we have sectors like auto components. We have sectors like semiconductor, as I said. We have a sector on battery. We see battery as a huge cell, the advanced cell technologies, as a huge potential in the future as we go towards sustainable development, electric mobility and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what the PLI is all about.
Wonderful, sir. Yeah, and it's also great to note that PLI also targets labor-intensive sectors like textiles, and positions India for the future, like you're saying. And as you were describing Gati Shakti, I was thinking to myself that many consulting companies around the world will be very unhappy with Gati Shakti because it puts them out of business. But it's another way of attracting global value chains to India and making it easier to set them up in India. Sir, I want to bring in a couple of audience questions as well regarding, there's some interest in understanding more about your approach with FTAs. You mentioned a number of countries with which, that are on your list for negotiations: Australia, the UK, GCC, Israel, and so on. One of the things I'd love to understand more is this early harvest approach. Your India-UAE, the India-UAE agreement was negotiated in 3 months, which is unheard of. And so what is this early harvest approach? Could you please explain?
Of course, I'll just clarify. The India-UAE is not even an early harvest. It's a full comprehensive economic partnership.
Oh.
So it's not early harvest. But you know what we did? We were under COVID, right? The third wave, Omicron had started. We had our teams work day and night, literally. In the day, we would have meetings. In the night, the teams would be preparing or briefing me, taking instructions. I was on top of it through the 90 days. The minister of UAE and I would be on a call every alternate day, smoothing the edges as the problems arose. Every fourth or fifth day, we had a VC. He flew down a couple of times. I went once. The idea was the same thing in the past used to be done over 10 years. They would have a whole round of discussions, and then the next round would be stated 6 months later, 3 months later, 4 months later. We decided to change the concept. If both, as they say, Mia Bibi Raji, in Hindi, when we are both committed to doing it, let's do it quickly. Let not the courtship extend for, months and years. So we took this new approach, and it worked like magic, wonders. We could resolve issues literally on a real-time basis. There were times when I would get a message on my phone from their minister, or I would send a message to Dr. Thani, hey, are you free for a quick call? And in 2 minutes, we would discuss what was the issue, which had kind of created a stalemate, and take a call mutually beneficial, fair and equitable, respecting each other's sensitivities, and convey to our teams, okay, move ahead in this direction. And that's what helped us complete in 3 months. With Australia also, we are almost on that speed. Actually, Australia would have been over by December. But for the travel restrictions being pretty large and the time difference, they are up and about while we are sleeping, and they are down into bed when our working hours are there. It's a 5.5 hour time gap, and they are ahead of us. So I think, but for that, we could have actually done this even faster. Even then, there are times when either their teams are up till 2 in the night, or our teams are up at 6 in the morning, accommodating each other so that we can move things. And even on Monday, we have a next round with the minister. I'm talking to the minister on VC on Monday afternoon. So we are committed, and we are trying to complete it in the next 3 weeks. And when you set very ambitious targets, very, very tight timelines, then things happen. You literally are forcing your hand on things to happen. And by the way, even in UAE, we had extensive stakeholder consultations. We had extensive interministerial consultations on both sides, which we would do in the rest of the time, other than our negotiations. So we have a complete buy-in of every industry, even those who are affected by the sectors where I've opened up to UAE imports. We have a complete buy-in, logical understanding. And I've been explaining to Indian industry, there is not a one-way traffic. You can't say, I want to do an FTA. I want access in that market. But hey, don't let those goods come to India. Protect me. Having said that, when I talk to my counterparts and I say, look, you got a $50,000 per capita income. I'm at $2,000. Respect the sensitivity of this stark difference. Your farmers have 1,000, 2,000 acres each. My farmers have 2 acres, 3 acres, 5 acres. It's an unfair competition. So respect that. Good part is the world, at least that's why I said we are talking to countries which share values of democracy, fair play, are looking for equitable agreements where there's the rule of law. There's trust between the two countries and our leaders and our people. And I can add, who respect each other's sensitivities. So with that open mind, when we are talking, we're able to really come up with the outstanding results. Early harvest is a concept that, frankly, India initiated. I was studying all the WTO laws, and maybe out of habit, I like to read a lot about, where we can look at something which gives you results faster. I'm always looking for faster results. And while studying the WTO laws, I realized that there is a concept, there's a Article 14, I think, under GATS, which allows countries which are committed to a full agreement, a holistic, comprehensive agreement, free trade agreement, to do an early harvest. So you don't wait for the complete agreement, but agree on a certain set of items, goods, services, or other items, and announce your commitment to do a full agreement within a defined time frame. So I caught on to that. I promise you it was difficult to convince world leaders, very difficult to convince the bureaucracy in any country. They were aghast at the idea when I said it first to Canada, to Australia, to the UK. Today, all have come around. So UK is talking early harvest. Australia is talking early harvest. We're concluding, actually. The Canadian minister is going to be here 10th, 11th of March. So far we were discussing a comprehensive partnership, but we realized it'll take a lot of time. The idea behind early harvest is there are many low-hanging fruits, many things where we complement each other. We are not in competition. Many things we can agree faster, and many things which will need a lot of negotiation, which are sensitive. So let's grab the low-hanging fruits so that the benefits of the agreement start being felt on the ground, which will encourage other people also to be more open in engaging for the final agreement. So that's the idea behind the early harvest.
Amazing. I think it sounds more and more like you run your vast portfolio of ministries like a well-oiled private sector enterprise. I mean, and that's meant as a compliment. But
by the way, if I may share, the Commerce Ministry today is what it was 70 years ago, 75 years ago now. And incidentally, my party's founder was the first Commerce Minister of India under the Nehru government, Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee. Mm-hmm. He founded the Jansangh, which is now the BJP. He was the Commerce Minister and Industry Minister in the Nehru government when we got independence. So right now we have engaged BCG through a transparent process where everybody was welcome to participate. But BCG showed the most promise, and they're on a paid engagement, and they are rewriting the entire Commerce Ministry based on this experience I've had of the last 2.5 years as Commerce Minister. So we are rewriting the entire working of the ministry. We call it the future of commerce. And only 2 days back, they gave me the first cut presentation, and an absolutely brilliant presentation. So the whole Commerce Department is going to rewrite its rules of business in the coming few months.
Wow. Looking forward to hearing more, sir, in the coming months. Sir, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm looking through audience questions, and honestly, you've already addressed so many questions about attracting technology from the developing world, WTO being at a standstill, so FTA as a route for promoting trade, and so on. So I hope audience members, you're finding your questions answered by the Honorable Minister. So I want to conclude, since this is a US-based forum as well in many ways, I want to conclude with a question on India-US relationships, on the relationship. You've mentioned that the US is not in a place to think about trade deals right now. But you mentioned being in conversations with your counterpart about increasing economic linkages. Could you share a bit more about what those areas of economic linkages could be? Also, how do they tie in with the Quad, given geopolitics and geoeconomics in the region? Yeah, we'd love to learn more.
Gopal, thank you very much. Good question. And incidentally, what are you studying there, if I may ask?
I'm in the International Development Program at the Kennedy School, sir. So focused on industrial policy and trade policy. Yeah.
So I wish you could spend some time in my office when you're through with your program at the Kennedy Business School.
Sir, I'll be there.
I'll invite you and all your other participants or friends who've joined in. Spend some time in government in India. You could be an intern, you could be a part of any of our teams. You'll get to understand India better. And you may even get a chance to contribute to our efforts. And we will learn from your education and your fresh thinking. So that is just before I answer your question. But, and I have great hopes from Harvard because both my kids are from Harvard. So I think each one of you must be an absolutely outstanding individual. So I will hope to see some of you giving us your valuable time, small part of your time, small part of your life. But anyway, I do believe the US and India are natural partners. Absolutely. Our two economies are made for each other, made to work together. You are, of course, our largest trading partner even today. And on the services side, particularly, I think we have a lot to learn from the US. We have a lot to contribute to the US. We have moved away from the BPOs and those low value offerings to the US technology sector to really now cutting edge of technology. I've been, by the way, reading your questions on the Q&A chat also, so that I could try and cover whatever I can out of what I read over there. But I believe that even on technology today, which I think somebody there asked, we are increasingly becoming more relevant. On goods, we all know that the US is looking for more trusted partners. You're looking for resilient supply chains. And believe me, the rule of law in India is so strong that even every government file is open to public scrutiny. For as little as 10 rupees, you can take out any paper from any government file, unless it's a very sensitive defense or, geopolitically sensitive issue. So that's the kind of openness. 1 billion people aspiring for opportunity. So aspiring for a better quality of life, which offers opportunity to American businesses. And clearly, we are at $2,000 per capita. Fortunately, the population is stabilizing now. Our growth numbers, mortality numbers are broadly balancing out. So now we have to look at this $2,000 going to $45,000, $50,000. We want to be second to none. And that's only possible if we engage with technology. That's only possible when we engage with the best in the world. I remember recently on some paper, the presentation was benchmarked on, our neighbors, for example, or some of the Far East Asian countries. I said, no, we'll benchmark to the US, to Europe, to Japan, to Korea. If we benchmark to, let's say, economies which are like ours or slightly better than ours, we are never going to get transformational results. I want to see what's the quality of education in Harvard and how we can get that in India. I want to be, if I may use the old Onida ad, if you remember it. I don't know when you were last, or did you spend time in India? I don't know. But you remember an Onida television manufacturer? Their ad used to be, the punchline used to be, neighbors envy, owners pride. That's what we are aspiring for India. And therefore, we want to benchmark to the US, to Europe, get the best of what you are offering to India, and be a part of your growth story also. be a part of your supply chains also. And therefore, in all our conversations with the US, with Catherine Tai, my counterpart, we are continuously looking at greater engagement with the US, strengthening our bonds of friendship and trust between the two countries. Our quads, both with Australia, Japan, US, and India, and the other one with UAE, Israel, US, and India. Both these quads are maturing. In fact, Dr. Jaishankar, the foreign minister, was in a quad engagement in Australia, in Melbourne, as recently as probably 2 weeks or 10 days back. Same time when Dan Tehan, the trade minister, was in India for a round of discussions on trade. Frankly, I do believe that being such strong, aligned partners with an alignment of geopolitical interests, alignment of thinking, shared values of democracy, concern for sustainability, I do believe the US and India should engage much more, much deeper. I hope the Quad will provide an opportunity at some stage to look at a greater economic engagement also, going beyond the geopolitical, defense, or strategic work that they are doing. I'm an optimist, and I'm sure the US and India going forward will both become two pillars on which the world will prosper.
Thank you, sir. That's we have so many more questions, but time has just flown by, and we must be respectful of your time and the audience's time as well. So please, with your permission, I'll wrap up this keynote event. So once more, on behalf of the entire India Conference team, my heartfelt gratitude for taking the time to be with us today and for helping us better understand your vision for India as an industrial superpower by 2030. I'm sure I'm not the only one in this virtual room who feels even more inspired and excited now to contribute towards the growth story of our nation. And I think many in your ministry will start hearing from us very soon. So thank you for the kind offer.
I look forward, Gopal, and it's an open invitation. Please get in touch with my office.
Thank you, sir.
Any of you who's looking for an experience about India, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much.